morning and welcome everyone to the career fair session on graphic design. We're so excited to have Shelby Walters here with us. Shelby, could you tell us, introduce yourself, what you do, who you work for, and tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I work for Vermeer. That's a manufacturing company. I've been with this company for a little over 5 years. I started as a graphic designer. I went to school for graphic design at Iowa State. And now I kind of am a little bit of a jack of all trades, being an in-house designer. My role now is called a creative specialist, and I do copywriting, photo direction, a little bit of like event planning on occasion, just kind of whatever the company needs from our team.
Terrific. Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about you said you went to school for graphic design. Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background?
Absolutely. So I'm from Iowa, and I looked all over the Midwest for different art schools that I could go to and ended up picking one right in my backyard at Iowa State University. They had a great graphic design program, and through school did a lot of branding work. That was like the core curriculum there. Was a lot of how to work in an agency style environment. So that's what I expected to be in when I graduated. So when I ended up at Vermeer as an in-house designer, it was kind of I would say like a learning curve, because it was a different style of working with a team that I hadn't previously experienced, but I really grew to love it. It's definitely, as I already touched on a little bit, it's being an in-house designer is trying to find solutions for whatever is needed that day. It can be a lot of different things. We work with a lot of different groups and a lot of different people. Vermeer itself has hands in a lot of different industries, and that helps expose me as a designer to a lot of fields that I don't get pigeonholed into doing the same activity all the time. Sometimes we direct photo shoots. We do a lot of designing for different types of media, digital advertising, print advertising. It's something new every day. So I'm glad that I had that education for that kind of agency style expectation, but I'm happy that I found the role that I did.
Awesome. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about, as an in-house designer, you said people are coming to you with a need and you're figuring out that solution. You mentioned creating print materials. Can you tell me, give me an example of that, of what that looks like when you had somebody in the company come to you and say, we need something that does this. How do you go about that, and what's that process?
So usually it's part of a larger campaign. Maybe it's the launch of a new product or promoting an upcoming, our presence at an upcoming trade show. So in that scenario, we're all about telling stories is how we talk about it. And so we kind of sit down and talk with each other about what's the story that we want to tell and how are we going to share that message. And then from that point, we'll discuss the actual, like the very literal message, like what the copy is going to be. And then we'll brainstorm what the imagery needs to go with that. Sometimes, again, we'll plan a photo shoot, or lots of times if we don't have the resources, which unfortunately does happen quite a lot from time to time, if there just isn't the actual time or the budget, we will spend a good amount of time photoshopping images together and creating the images we need, instead of taking the time to get a set and a photographer. And then we'll meet with product specialists oftentimes and get what their needs are. And then we'll kind of all just work together to get that final product that usually starts with maybe a print ad and a publication. And then from there, we'll use that as a jumping off point to create digital ads and maybe an email campaign or whatever that specific need is.
Great. So what do you love about the work that you do?
I really love, I love working with my team. We have a lot of really great people here. I'm lucky that this company is they really value their employees a lot, and they tend to hold on to talent. And it's been a great experience to get to know the people that I work with. And even now, during this weird time that we're going through, we're all mostly working from home. But even that has presented some really great opportunities to get to know each other in different ways and different ways of working together and utilizing what resources we do have. It's been nice. Yeah.
Good. Great. What's the hardest thing about your job?
Oh gosh. I think the being an in-house designer and my role specifically in this business, it's the new activity every day is a blessing and a curse sometimes. Sometimes it can feel hard or challenging to focus on one area, or you can feel like you're changing gears a lot, but that's also what keeps it interesting and makes the job fun.
Yeah. So I would imagine that when you're saying, you've got a lot of things going on and it varies from day to day, that you need to probably work on things pretty quickly and have, talk about maybe how you like deadlines and timelines. Are those really important things in the graphic design world? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just time management in general, I'm being a visual person, I really like to have a paper planner. I know that's kind of old school, but that's my thing, to write everything down, and I want to be able to see my calendar. And then as a team, we use a couple digital resources online and our email system that all links our stuff together. And so recently we switched over to a project management system where somebody will submit a request, and then they kind of have a series of questions that they need to fill out about the project, and that helps us understand their needs more and just helps us again kind of tell whatever the story is that they're wanting to get across. And those sometimes are questions like who is the audience? That's really the number one all the time. Who's the audience? What's the message? What's the ultimate goal? Things like that.
Yeah. So in your role or your understanding of your industry in general, can you talk a little bit about work-life balance? And we had heard from, I did another session, we were talking about photography and how those people spend a lot of time working on evenings and weekends if they're doing portraiture or things like that. Can you talk a little bit about graphic design in general and how that fits into a more typical or outside of those typical hours? What does that look like?
Okay, so for me, I, for better or for worse, I feel like I never stop working. I have a lot of personal kind of for fun projects that I do in my free time. I do like to draw. One of my, a couple of years ago, I did invest in an iPad Pro, and getting to figure that out and use that as a tool. Started off just for fun, but then I started incorporating it into my work here at Vermeer. And that's how I relax at night, is just drawing random stuff. Or I follow a lot on like social media, for example. I follow a lot of other graphic designers and illustrators. I'm always looking at other people's work. do on occasion help others with like freelance jobs or kind of volunteer work for small businesses now and again. It's just kind of always there. When I was growing up, art was the thing that I liked and that I was good at and what gave me confidence, and I just kind of never stopped doing it.
That's great. So you truly found something that is your life's passion. That's awesome. We have a great question here. It says, since graphic design is creation oriented, what do you do when you have artist block? Like when you just can't come up with something creative or that feels good.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a very real thing. You definitely can't force creativity. And what works best for me is not trying to force it. If I'm, I give it a good amount of time, but if I'm just stuck at my desk and I just really can't do it that day, the things that help me the most are doing something creative that doesn't necessarily involve the thing that I'm working on, just to get your brain in another mode. Like maybe I'll get up and cook something for lunch that's kind of random with the ingredients that I have on hand, or I'll go outside and go for a walk, or I will get on Instagram and look at other artists that I've been checking out, or Pinterest, just kind of still doing something in the vein of creativity, but not forcing yourself to focus on a certain task. And that usually kind of breaks loose that creative block.
Awesome. Great advice. So what do you think the most important qualities of someone would be if they wanted to pursue graphic design? Like, what do you need to have as like a personal trait?
I think you definitely need to be self-motivated for those times, like we just talked about, when it isn't coming along so easily. Or one of the best pieces of advice I got when I was in college from an older designer was know when to not be a graphic designer. Graphic design is a super artsy industry, but you are not an artist. I mean, yes, you are, but the thing is, you're getting paid for the work that you're doing, and it is business driven. So you need to know when to kind of step back and evaluate your choices from a business perspective, and not necessarily like, oh man, I just really don't like the way that A and E look sitting together. It's really bugging me. And you spend another 15 minutes picking at your kerning, or when it's good to just call a project done and move on. Know when to not be a designer.
Yeah. So I would imagine that's really interesting, right? There's that balance between being an artist, but also you're working, like you're in a corporate structure. So you're working for your client as your company, or if you were an agency. Yeah. So you need to be creative, but not creative in that you're just an artist selling your work to whoever might be interested.
Exactly.
It's getting geared to somebody to meet their specific need.
Right.
And
then that helps you stick to those timelines. And then there unfortunately also can be some pretty harsh criticisms in this industry, and you've got to learn when to separate yourself from your work. That's a really big one. And your client, you can, it's your job as a graphic designer to kind of help connect that visual language of the message and the product, and not get caught up in the personality of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that, right? That you've poured your heart and soul into developing this, and it's born of your creativity, but it may not be something that resonates with the client or whoever's in charge of that. Yep. So trying to not take it personally. I can see that. So being able to brush that off and continue to work.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for students who are interested in graphic design? What do you wish you could tell yourself when you were in school, or when you were younger and thinking about this as a career?
Utilize your resources. Don't make more work for yourself. There's a lot of um, the first thing that comes to mind is when I was in school, there's a lot of free graphic design resources available to you online that as students specifically are completely free and free to use in your work. You don't have to worry about because it's student work and not for profit, you don't have to worry about violating trademarks or copyrights or what have you. And let that really fuel your creativity. Use those resources while you can, and it'll benefit you in your process in the future.
Awesome. How important do you think it is for students who are participating in, or who are want to pursue this, to try to get an internship or go job shadow, do those sorts of things? How important is that?
I think it's very valuable to have work experience. I know, I think I had a lot of friends when we left the program that felt a little jaded or disappointed about kind of that expectation that they had versus the reality that they met. Getting an internship is valuable so that you understand the workplace and understand that you do a lot of really, really cool projects in school, but in the real world, at least for your first job, so like hang in there if you get one of these jobs, you might be doing some really repetitive tasks at first that don't feel creative, don't feel necessarily creatively fulfilling, but that's how it starts, unfortunately, and you kind of got to get through those parts, and I promise it'll be rewarding later. But an internship will definitely get you a little bit of that perspective, gain some working experience, and then maybe when you come into your first job, since you do have that internship experience under your belt, maybe you can jump into some better projects right away.
Yeah, so you have to sort of pay your dues in the field, right, and earn that credibility and opportunity. Yeah. We have another great question asking about what networking looks like as a graphic designer and in your industry. Is there a lot of networking and communication?
For me, yes, because I'm still very close with a lot of graphic designers that I graduated the program with. And then through those friends, I've met other graphic designers like very organically. I don't feel like I've ever had to try to network to meet other graphic designers. It just kind of happens through meeting friends of friends, etc. We've done sand volleyball graphic design teams and stuff. And then it's kind of funny. One of my coworkers now, at my very, very first job, once I left, she was my backfill. And then our mutual coworkers, even though her and I never actually worked together, we all met, became friends. And then when a spot opened up on my team here, she applied and now we work together. So it's just kind of this cool community of graphic designers.
That's awesome to find people that support each other and have each other's interests and be able to make those teams. That's great. What, when you think about graphic design, talk to me maybe a little bit about the other careers that are sort of adjacent to that. That if you have an experience, of a graphic design education or a graphic design interest, but you're not going to become a specific graphic designer, what are other things that are sort of next to or near that in terms of jobs that you know of?
Okay, so in an agency setting, I think having a graphic design background would benefit you in really almost any role in an agency setting, of being like an account manager or an art director. Structurally speaking, and in businesses, the higher you get as a designer, ironically, the less design work you do, and you kind of become the idea person, and you just kind of guide your teammates and make broad suggestions and give direction as an art director. So if you have a graphic design degree, but maybe you decide you don't necessarily want to pursue graphic design, I think it's super valuable for any creative role, just using that design thinking to solve problems. I've known people that have graphic design degrees that go on to open their own small business and not even necessarily make products, like design products. They are photographers, or they do event services and things like that. It's a good base for creative industries.
That design thinking is just so valuable and important. I know I hear a lot about that. So that mindset and that approach to problem solving. Awesome. What do you think the job outlook is in your field? Do you think this is a good time to get into graphic design? Do you think there's a high demand? Do you think there's, more people pursuing it than there are positions? What's your interpretation of the job outlook for graphic designers?
To be totally honest, I'm not sure. In my biased opinion, I think it's always a good time to be a graphic designer. People are always going to need designers. There are even, tough times such as now, business is strange, but it just changes form. When it's not print, it's digital. When it's not events, it's online. Like it just shifts. Design is always needed. I think that there's a lot of, for web design is another great example. I've known a lot of graphic designers that go on to exclusively do web design, which is really like a whole different animal. Coding is crazy. That's another hot tip. If you have the opportunity to teach yourself coding while you're still in college, definitely do that. I wish I had. There's a lot of websites now that you can kind of like build your own, but even so, again, you need that design thinking. You need designers still. I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that you think students would, it'd be important for them to know? Or what's your best piece of advice?
Best piece of advice. I think, again, if I were to time travel and talk to myself in college, I would say take the time to utilize the free resources that you have. Teach yourself those extra skills while your brain is malleable, because I already feel like I'm an old woman that can't learn new things like coding. And try, do a good job, put the effort into your portfolio, make sure you have a good online presence. And I'm talking about like all of the online things, because I can speak from experience. If you apply to a job, we definitely go look at your social media accounts.
Yeah. So yeah, important that all around and the effort and the way that you represent yourself, because if you're selling something, helping somebody sell their brand, they want to know about your brand.
Yes.
Great advice. Well, Shelby, thank you so much for your time and for all of your advice and insights. We really appreciate it. And this has been great. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. This was fun.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.